Katie. Thank you for being here. I suppose the subtitle of this book is Getting Things Done for Change. And that's what really inspired this book. Because I've been watching this left-right convergence for many years now. And it comes in many forms. You see it in Congress when they put bills in, unlikely allies, they call them Republican, Democrat. You see it around the country in localities on various issues of common ground. And you're beginning to see it now in really hard, tough power contexts. And so I thought I'd explore this to some degree and avoid it being pie in the sky, number one, to take a hard look at where the convergences are specifically, and to elucidate the obstacles to it. Why hasn't it gone from verbal agreement into operational practice, like legislation, like litigation, like elections, and so on, and how to overcome these obstacles. And I discovered that the principal divide and rule that is cleaving these groups from coalescing beyond simple verbal agreement and articles that agree in different publications is corporatism. It's the corporate juggernaut that has turned our country into a corporate state, and we read about it and hear about it all the time. It's Wall Street over Washington, it's Goldman Sachs over community banks, it's Exxon Mobil over local renewable, it's agribusiness giants over farmer to consumer markets, it's the shredding of labor pensions, it's the depressing of livelihoods and the decline of wages. All of this is made possible by the apprehension of public authority by corporate sovereignties and power. So they've turned the Constitution upside down. It starts out, we the people. There's no word corporation or company in our Constitution. There's no word political party in our Constitution. Why are we ruled by them? And this is, in effect, it's a very extensive silent coup d'etat, supported by 5-4 decisions again and again by the Supreme Court, which is working with a slim majority to corporatize our political economy and our civil liberties. Now, you're entitled to specifics, and I do want to indulge on your patience a bit by listing some of the areas that there is a left-right convergence. Now, it's in various stages. It could be just verbal agreement. They have conferences together against militarism, which actually occurred in Washington. Left, right, disagree on a lot of things. All agree they've got to do something about militarism, empire, bloated military budgets, and the rest. It could be that it is actually operational. Now, operational is majority support for restoring the minimum wage to just under $11, which is what it would have been if 1968 minimum wage was adjusted for inflation. The federal minimum wage is 7.25. New York's about 8 something now. But there are 30 million workers today making less than 1968, adjusted for inflation, including 1 million Walmart workers who are governed by the CEO of Walmart, who makes a mere $11,000 an hour, 8 hours a day. And he didn't earn it. He had a rubber stamp board of directors. Now, I'll try to do this 1 or 2 sentences at a time in terms of the areas. The book has 25 areas of emerging convergence in various stages. It could be verbal, it could be actual legislation, it could be joining together on litigation, like on civil liberties, revising the Patriot Act, or it could be starting to become operational. And the minimum wage is operational. It's now hitting 70-80% support, and it has begun to bubble up at the city and state level. The states and cities are not waiting for Congress. The mayor of Seattle's pushing for $15 an hour. Santa Fe has been $10.50 for years. And we have the lowest minimum wage in the Western world by far, by the way. So here are some of the areas. Some may seem a little esoteric, but they're very significant in terms of taking power away from unilateral corporate hegemony. All right, the first one is auditing the Defense Department budget. Now, just think of this. This is half of the federal government's expenditures outside of Medicare and Medicaid. Half of the federal government's expenditures is military. Doesn't even count veterans' benefits later on. And there's no audit. Now imagine a business with $800 billion and there's no audit. The Government Accountability Office of Congress every year ends its conclusion to Congress. We do not have the adequate data in order to develop an audit. Now, when you don't have an audit, all kinds of billions of dollars slip through the cracks. Like $9 billion disappeared in the first few weeks of the criminal invasion of Iraq by Bush and Cheney. Just the other day, the press reported $6 billion couldn't be accounted for in the State Department budget. You know, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Senator Dirksen said, pretty soon it adds up to real money. Now, you will get verbal agreement with 90% of the Congress. There should be an audit, but you won't get action because there are too many lobbyists named Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, and all the various districts that tell the senators and representatives, shut up and sign off. Just so the key to unraveling what is being done with this Pentagon budget, it's not just waste and fraud. It's black budgets, what they call black budgets. These are the deadly use of money criminally all over the world, unconstitutionally, going into countries, etc., that we now hear about, in part because of Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning's disclosure. By the way, whenever people say that they disclosed it and they're traitors and they're, these two men are traitors, just tell them the devastation that comes from secrecy. Think of all the criminal wars, the slaughter of millions, the waste of trillions of dollars facilitated by cover-ups and lies, otherwise known as secrecy in government. You want to talk about real damage? What we have here are the criminals in government wanting to judge in kangaroo courts people like Chelsea Manning and Edward Snowden, upside down society. The second is that there's strong opposition to corporate welfare by left and right. This is almost overwhelming. And it comes in many ways. They're opposed to taxpayer funding of stadiums and arenas. They're opposed to the use of eminent domain that takes the property owned by small business or homeowners and gives it over to General Motors or Pfizer for their own operation. That's not supposed to be a reason for eminent domain. The right wing says tax dollars should not be used for crony capitalism. We call it the corporate state on our side. And so there's a real, very strong effort. That's why the sports billionaires do everything they can to make sure that there's no referendum approving a tax-supported stadium, like Yankee Stadium, for example. Thirdly, we have increasing support in Congress to put all government contracts and leaseholds online, full text, so we can see where the money is going, so we can get more competition for government business, and therefore more efficiency. We get more media, get more scholarship, etc. We have people like Senator Coburn teaming up with then Senator Obama to put all contracts online. Summaries are already online. We want the full text. Fourth, I mentioned the minimum wage. That is now moving operational, and increasingly so. You know, when you're a conservative worker in Walmart, you don't say, "Oh, I'm conservative. I want it $7.50 an hour. I don't want it $10 an hour. I don't."